Welcome to Powering Through Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Teresa Sims. I am a coach, an author, wife, mom, survivor, and thriver. Each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I will discuss a special topic that is close to their heart. Together, we will explore the challenges they've faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their lives. So get ready to be inspired, motivated, and let's motivate the world through conversation. Welcome back to Powering Through Life. Today, my guest is Erika Harston Noll. Did I say that right, Erika?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And Erika is happily married to her best friend, and they have 7 children. Erika has a bachelor's degree in comparative literature, is a best-selling author and editor, and a certified nutritarian and health coach. She has developed skills in advocating for herself and others, holistically supporting health with natural medicine and nutrition, and creating a healing home. Oh my goodness, that is so impressive. The 7 children got me, but there's a lot more to Erika than that. So Erika, welcome to Powering Through Life.
Thank you so much for having me on, Teresa. I really appreciate being able to tell my story.
I think that's what's necessary because I really found your story fascinating and all the things that you do in your world. And it's so important. It starts at home, doesn't it?
Everything starts at home.
It does. So would you want to tell, well, actually, our topic today, or Erika's topic, is dealing with her daughter's vaccine injury. I know this happens a lot, more often than it used to. And I've known a few people that in my time that have had this happen. So Erika, what happened when your daughter was 5 that changed your life?
Well, I went in, I was one that I got vaccinations for my kids. I just thought that was what you did. That was the healthy thing to do. And so she had been fully vaccinated, and at her kindergarten shots, everybody gets their shots before they go to school. And we went in, and this time was different. They had added another shot to the schedule at that point. But just the reaction that she had was mind-blowing. It just was different. There was just this change that came over her. We struggled for a couple of weeks, and then she just didn't go back to normal. And at the time, I didn't really know much about vaccines. I did, I went and I did them, and the doctors gave, that little watered down sheet that they give every parent. These are the absolute biggest reactions that could happen. They don't list any of the smaller reactions that could happen. And most parents skim through it. They just assume it's safe. I did. And then for a lot of people, nothing happens, or nothing that they can connect dot to dot, right? But for some people, something happens, and that this is directly connected to what you just put in your child's body. And I just had this gut feeling, and I had a friend talk about her son's vaccine injury, and I was like, that's got to be an anomaly, right? That doesn't happen very often. And her son got full-blown autism, and my daughter, it wasn't full-blown autism. There were a lot of things that I was like, what is this? This is different. Sensory issues. She started having major sensory issues that just made our life miserable. She didn't want to wash her hands and use soap. She didn't want to brush her teeth and use toothpaste, and she didn't want to do these things. The sensory part of it bothered her so much. Sound bothered her so much. In fact, we have sound headphones for her that are noise canceling headphones because sound bothers her so much. Things make her jump. Things just sound is a big deal for her. Just a lot of different sensory issues. And then she was able to read at 5. She was my first child. I read to her a ton. I'm a literature buff, right? So we have tons of books in our home, and I read to her so much that she could read fluently second grade books at that time. And so she was already at this high level of reading, and something changed where she could still read, but after she was done reading, she couldn't remember what she read. She couldn't put it into her own words or tell stories or repeat it in any sort of way. And that was different because she had been able to do that before. And she was a shy girl already, but this pushed her to the point where she didn't want to interact with people. Like, she would hide behind my leg. And a lot of times, especially as she got older, it was much more evident that she couldn't read facial expressions. So she really didn't know how people were feeling. And that's really important, especially for kids when they don't always understand big words that are going on around them. To be able to see those facial expressions and understand, okay, that facial expression means angry, and that facial expression means happy, and that facial expression means sad. She cannot read facial expressions. She doesn't get it. And I hadn't assessed that before that point, but she hadn't seemed to have a problem with it before. And so all of these things were happening, and I went to my friend and I'm like, what is going on? And so we had some pretty frank discussions. She gave me a lot of information to read, some books to read. At that time, the internet really wasn't what it is today. And now you can look up so many things and you can find, all these studies and things that are out there. And those studies, some of them have been done more recently, but there were studies back then that this was early. What year was it? 2004. And that it happened. And then over the next few years, I was just, like I said, I'm a reader. I'm a voracious reader. And I started studying, and I started reading and reading and reading. And I was reading studies, and I was reading books by doctors and books by moms and books by people that had experience around this area. And I was taken on a journey that shook me. It really shook me to the core, because I had a core belief. Most people in our society have this core belief that vaccines are healthy and that vaccines are good and that they're safe. In fact, that's what we hear all the time. They're safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective, right? And that's like the parrot. That's just what is told to us over and over. But there isn't proof that they're safe and effective. There just isn't. When you go into the literature and you actually read the studies, when you have a scientific study, they have this abstract at the very top of it that's like a summary, and it gives you the conclusions of the study. But when you actually go in and read the studies, many of the conclusions they come to are incorrect based on the data in the study. And that blew my mind, that people were taking these studies and skewing the information, or only taking part of the information to make their claims that they were making. And so, needless to say, I stopped vaccinating, and it has affected our life that I stopped vaccinating, because I live in California. And if you know anything about California, over the last 15 years, California has slowly taken away parents' rights to choose whether they vaccinate or not, and be able to get your kids in school. And so, yes, sure, you can choose. However, to be able to get your child in school, they have to be vaccinated. And there were different laws that came out, and I started going up to the Capitol and fighting these laws. And it was really eye-opening to come into these government offices and see and feel the legislators' coldness. They didn't care. They didn't care one bit about my child.
And that's the horrible part behind this whole thing, isn't it? I mean, they're there to act for the betterment of of humanity. But
Yes,
if they're choosing to only have their own agendas, that's wrong. And I don't blame you for advocating around that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that whole political thing, I'm not going to go into it because that can be very polarizing. But what I really want to talk about is the advocating I did in our home, because I started to find natural means to help with the emotional upheaval that came when she started having these issues. She got upset. I got upset. It was upsetting to our whole family. It was a big change. She would have temper tantrums that would last for hours, and I tried everything. I tried so many things to try and help her be able to calm down and be able to mentally work through, what was causing the upset. And I did come across some things that started to help with calming her down. I brought essential oils into the home, and some of them were miracle workers in helping calm her down. I mean, sometimes there were times when she would be having a temper tantrum and she wouldn't let me touch her. And I would literally open the top of the bottle and throw it at her so it would get some oil on her body. And it worked. It would always work to calm her down. Orange was her favorite. I
was going to ask you which ones were the best.
A blend called Peace and Calming, obviously that name, and that did have orange in it. That blend does have orange in it. That was like her miracle calm down thing. And there were quite a few different other oils as well for the calming. But it also helped me because I was dealing with something that I'd never dealt with before. And I was also, when this first happened, I was pregnant with another child. And I just kept, like I said, I have 7 babies.
You were busy.
So she was my first. And I just having babies every other year, and pretty much like clockwork during that time. And so, for me, being pregnant or nursing, the whole time we were dealing with this, it was very stressful. And then dealing with things at school too. There was one year where at the very end of the year, the teacher came to me and said, "Wow, your daughter really loves to sharpen her pencil." And I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And she proceeded to tell me that during the whole school year, and she had never once mentioned it before, that my daughter would get up and sharpen her pencil multiple times during class. And this was a mechanism that she had come to use to help herself calm down, because the humming of the electric pencil sharpener helped to calm her down in the middle of class when she was getting anxious. And it was also a little bit of an avoidance behavior when she couldn't do the work. And she was my first. So when she got to 4th grade, and she was bringing home loads of homework. I didn't know any different. It was when my next child got to 4th grade and he hardly had any homework that I was like, okay, what the heck is going on here? Because it's the same teacher even. Oh. And so I found out that they would do all of that work in class, and it was only what they didn't get done in class that they would bring home. And she just couldn't get it done. She didn't have the ability, she had lost the ability to read, assimilate the information, and then bring it back down onto the page in like putting it in her own words or answering a question about it. She couldn't do that. And that was one of the things that started to be a really big problem, because as you get into the older grades, you got to do that all the time. And we would sit for hours and hours and hours after school, me helping her with her work and just struggling because I didn't want to do it for her. I didn't want to do that. And yet she would read the information and I would ask her to tell me what it was, and she just couldn't do it. She couldn't bring it back out. So it was just the struggle with the academics. And she struggled all the way through high school. And we did end up advocating for her and getting her a 504 plan.
Which is?
A 504 plan is different than an IEP. There are different things that you can do to get your child help in school. And a 504 is something, and we wanted this in case she wanted to go to college, because it goes with you through all of your education. It's not just through your elementary and high school with the IEP. And there are other nuances between the two. But with her 504 plan, she was allowed extra time on assignments. She was allowed extra time on tests. Many times she would take the test, she wouldn't be finished with it, and so then she would go back after school and then she would finish the test. Or like some of the assignments, like if the teacher was giving duplicate assignments, like assignments that were assessing the same thing, that she would only have to do one of them. So there was a little bit of a reduction in her workload because she just couldn't handle it. She really couldn't. And it was like sometimes we were up, especially in high school, we were up till midnight working on all of that because she needed help. She needed one-on-one help, and I was that person. But I had other kids, and so I couldn't help her all day, and so she would sit and struggle with as much as she could, and then when I'd put the other kids to bed, then I would sit down with her and we would go through the rest and work, and that it was stressful. So essential oils were like big time help with stresses during that time.
Do the school systems not have educational assistants available for the students? Like people in there that are trained to work one-on-one with them?
Well, the thing is, when she would test, as long as she had enough time, she would test fairly high in many things. She didn't qualify for a lot of the help that they had. She just didn't qualify. And so she was just like right on this borderline of qualifying, but she needed help. So, I mean, at the time I wasn't working. I just had all my babies, just all for younger brothers and sisters. And so it was just very stressful. But we did find something that made a difference when it was her freshman year. And I was learning about nutrition. I was learning about the benefits of cleansing your body. And I thought, you know what? Let's do a cleanse. We'll do it together. So she and I did this cleanse together. And we weren't even halfway done. It was a week-long cleanse. And one of her teachers reached out to me and said, what are you doing? Because something's different. I noticed something is different.
Oh, wow.
her cognitive ability lifted, like it had, she was able to like answer a question, because usually when you ask her a question, it takes her a long time to answer. And so when you're in a classroom situation, teachers just skip over a student that's just sitting there trying to think and trying to, bring an answer up into your mind. And they just, okay, you don't have it, we'll go to another student. And so, and I guess she was answering questions more quickly, just from doing this cleanse. And the effects lasted for several months. And so we found that regular cleansing really helped her. And at this time, I was finding out more in my research at how vaccinations can affect your digestive system, and they can affect obviously your brain. But when you're cleansing your digestive system, that opens the pathway for other toxins to be able to leave your body. And because when it's backed up, it's clogged. Nothing else can leave because it's all clogged, and that's like the last dumping ground, right? You've got to get everything out. And so we started regularly cleansing, and that really helped. And so there have been some healing that she has gone through, and she is much better now than she was, and because of the cleansing. And then we've also changed our diet, and changing to more of a plant-based diet. We still eat some meat, but really it's usually once, maybe twice a week that we eat meat and some fish. But we removed dairy, and we have focused on a lot of fruits and vegetables and making our food from scratch, because that makes a difference. It really makes a difference when you are providing your body with alive nutrients that are fresh, that are vibrant with life. And because of my studying in nutrition, I decided to become a nutritarian coach so that I could help others with their nutrition, because it made a big difference for us. It made a big difference for me and my health, and also my daughter in her healing journey. And I don't know that she'll ever be completely healed. I don't know. We're still working on it. She's 23 now. She lives at home. She doesn't have a driver's license because her decision-making skills are just not fast enough to be able to drive. And just, we're still working. We're still trying to find long-term solutions, but the cleansing, that is something that has made a huge difference with her cognitive abilities, and being able to take information and bring it back out again. So that made a big difference. I would recommend cleansing for anyone. And we've done quite a few different kinds of cleanses, just experimenting, right? Just trying to see what worked and what didn't work, and what different benefits different cleanses would have. And we're starting another sequence because I've learned that cleansing is a circular thing, and there are different cleanses you can do at different times of year. And it benefits your body to do specific cleanses during certain seasons. Our bodies go through seasons, and it just, there's so much. I love research. So
I have an interesting question to ask, and it might seem a little odd, but because you have a daughter, she's female. Did her menstrual cycle add to the problem?
Oh, yeah.
If you don't mind talking about that.
Yeah. That's something actually I like talking about, because when she started cycling, even before her menstrual cycle started, she was cycling for at least a year before. I could see that there were cycles happening. And yes, that made her mood swing quite a bit more than it did already. And then when she started the actual menstrual cycle, she started having headaches every month, like clockwork. Every month she got a migraine. And so then I was looking for solutions for that, along with the crying for the week before, like just all the mood, PMS, classic PMS symptoms. And she was only 12, and having all of this, and so many young girls, so many women have these same issues, and it affects our life. It affects everyday interactions with other people, and it affects how we feel on a daily basis. We did find something that just took away the headaches completely. In fact, it made it so that I never knew when she was going to start, because she didn't have that week of crying beforehand. And it's called Progessence Plus. It actually has some natural progesterone in it. I am a holistic person now, and so I always look for the natural solutions. And this natural progesterone, I found out many women are lacking progesterone. They just don't have enough. And so just adding, and she just used a little bit every single day. It was a daily thing. And using that every single day, no more headaches, no more major mood swings beforehand. And for a while it was a little disconcerting for me, because I didn't know when she was going to start, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't know when and she didn't either. And so sometimes there was no warning, and then all of a sudden she'd be at school and she'd be, in trouble. So of course we had to take care of preparation all the time. But
Right.
But I mean, when you have no PMS, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And it works for me too.
Well, you go from one extreme to the next, right? I mean, it's good that you found solutions around that, because, it's bad enough when we're older, but when we're young and that starts, and then to have the inability to, maybe vocalize what's going on, and Mom, how I feel, and this and that, it must have been a nightmare for her.
Yeah. And she didn't. She never could express, like, Mom, I'm feeling bad, so this is why I'm crying, right? She still doesn't do that. She just has her
cries.
moment,
Yeah.
And
so what was her, when she had her vaccination, if we could go back to that a little bit, what were the signs that you noticed that there was something wrong? Because maybe there's a mom listening right now that, has had her child vaccinated, and the child is experiencing some odd behaviors or attitudes, or however you want to phrase it. What went on with your daughter?
Well, immediately she passed out. Like, that happened immediately. And she'd never passed out before. I mean, she had been getting shots since she was a baby, and she had never passed out before. And I was freaking out, like, what the heck is going on? And after she was back up and awake, and they gave her some orange juice and some crackers, and we just sat there for a long time, because I didn't know, why she had fainted, and the doctors didn't tell me anything. Like, they're like, oh, that's normal. I'm like, no, it's not. This has never happened before to us. Like, this has never happened to anyone in our family, to completely pass out while they're getting their shots. That's never happened to us before. And so as we were, like, I basically had to carry her to the car. And it was like her legs were wobbly. She couldn't walk. And this was after 15 minutes of sitting there in the office. And she, later they told me, what's the word for it? Something syncope, where people are afraid of needles.
Oh, yeah.
And they faint because they're afraid of needles, but she wasn't afraid of needles. And that was not it. And she was jelly-legged to the car. Like, she couldn't walk right. Her head just was lolling around. And even when we got home, I had to help her into the house, and she got a super high fever, and it went on for days. And at the time, I called in. Now, this was, for her, this was normal. She always got a super high fever. She always cried. When she was a baby, she would scream. This was a normal thing. And the doctors always told me, this is normal. Take Tylenol, have her take Tylenol, and it will, it'll take down the fever. She'll be okay. And so I gave her Tylenol, and that took down the fever some, but she was not okay. And it would just keep coming back and keep coming back. And so it was like a week of fever, up and down fever, and then another week, and she was ill. She was not well. She was not up. She was
like, was she throwing up? Was she
didn't throw up. It was more of just languishing. On the couch, just languishing, like someone does when they have a high fever.
Yeah.
They just lay there and they sweat, and they, if they're little, they'll cry. And she was 5, and she would cry, and she would just lay there and just do nothing. And once that passed, now she did have a humongous big knot on her leg. And
from the injection site?
The injections, yes. She had gotten 3 or 4 injections, and several of those injections were multiple injections. So she had gotten quite a few different vaccinations. Like, if you count them up, it was quite a few all at once, which should never happen. It should never happen. When you look at the science behind children's immune systems, and even one vaccination, they haven't done the studies of combining different vaccinations together. Like with the ones that are combined in one shot, they have done some studies, but taking that and then combining it and giving it at the same time as another shot that's a multiple shot, they have done no studies on the effects of that. None. That's a problem.
That is huge.
It's safe and effective when they have not done the studies on giving the shots at the same time. They haven't done it.
That's disgusting. I am so totally disgusted by that. That's terrible. And what, we're caught between what we can do and what we can't do about it.
Right. Like, I can't go and do a study on that. I'm not a scientist, but I can read studies and I can understand them because of my training in reading and literature. I can understand government lingo when I go and I read law, and I can understand the studies when I read them. Yes, sometimes I have to go and look a word up, but I can understand it. And so that's one thing that I like to do, is when I'm talking with someone and they don't understand something, I can take that material and help them to be able to understand what it means.
That's good. That's helpful. Sounds like you're in the right field and area, to be able to not only advocate for yourself, your family, but for helping others as well.
Yeah.
So how has this situation, I hate to call it that, but how has this affected the rest of your family?
Well, we have some interesting dynamics in our house. You know how most people have, the first child, second child, third child, and down, and each child has their different roles that they play in the home. Mm-hmm. Ours is not quite that way, because she doesn't fill the role of the first child. So my third child fills that role as the first child, and like just the dynamics of the kids is different, because she just doesn't have the mental capacity to be like a protector and one that helps her younger siblings. And yes, there are so many things that she does well, and she and I were actually talking about this the other day, because sometimes she feels bad because she knows that she can't do some things, or she can't understand situations. And so she says the wrong thing, and it rubs people the wrong way. And so I have to have these conversations with her, like, you can do this so well, right? She loves to garden, and that's like her happy place. So, and I'm a gardener myself, but she's got this little succulent garden, and she's out there taking care of it every day. And it's quiet and peaceful to her, and she does it well. And so it's something, I mean, and when you have kids like this, you need to find something that they can find that they do well, that they love, and that's something that she does well and she loves. It's the social interactions that make it difficult, but we have social interactions on a daily basis. And so, there's been some friction because she doesn't like to be bothered, or she doesn't like loud noises. Sometimes she freaks out at the little kids because they're bouncing around and making noise, and she's like, stop it, and so sometimes she will freak out at the little kids, and so they think she doesn't like them because of her reactions that she has because of her sensitivities, her these sensory things that just really bother her. And so, I mean, on a normal basis, like when she's helping load the dishwasher, she'll be wearing her noise canceling earphones so that the kids going in and out of the kitchen, whatever, don't bother her as much, So, I mean, things like that have affected the family. And I know sometimes when I've had to spend so much time with her, some of the other kids have felt left out. And, with having so many kids, you've got to strike a balance. And so sometimes I've had to tell her, I have to go and spend time with these other kids right now, and you are going to have to wait, especially now that she's graduated high school. She's working, which is great. And she does some things, we have chores for everybody. And so she's got chores around the house. And so, I expect her to do her responsibilities. And I give everybody chores I know they can do, or they can at least learn to do when they're growing. But yeah, sometimes it's hard. And she feels, wait, you're not giving me the time, but I have other children that I need to give time to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It must be very, very difficult for you to be able to find the time to dedicate to each child, because each child is so special.
Yes.
And unique in their own ways, right? And it's not one's fault, it's not the other one's fault, but they all need love and attention and affection and, time from their parents. So what do you do for Erika through all this? This is important, because if you can't refocus yourself, regain your happy place, you're not going to be there for everyone else, can you?
Right. The first thing I'm going to say is prayer. I have to have God's help every day, so I pray. I journal. I love to journal, and get into scripture, and that's one thing I do for me. I mean, it's really for me, but I find if I skip a day, my day does not go as well, and the kids feel that.
It's for you, but for everybody else as well.
Yes.
So yeah,
for everybody.
And you know what? That's a great thing to do, because it's a quiet activity, and you just recenter yourself.
Yeah, and I like to do it first thing. Sometimes I can't, but I like to do it first thing, because it just sets the whole mood for the day. It sets just my whole spirit for the day. I also garden, and getting my hands in the dirt. I mean that's scientifically proven to uplift your mood and make you happy. And it also gives you probiotics, if you didn't know that. Dirt.
I did not know that. Well, we're not eating it, but
no, you're not eating it. Just getting it on your hands, you get specific probiotics that you need. So if you're not gardening, go get your hands in the dirt anyway.
I like that because I garden all the time. I'm right into
Mm-hmm.
my flower beds and whatnot, and I'm an ex-farmer, so if I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have my hands or my feet in the soil, there's something wrong. I love the smell of dirt.
Yeah,
I'm a
I do
little
too.
odd, but
Dirt and
well,
rain. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah,
So good. So
yeah.
good. Yeah, I grew up on a farm myself. So I grew up on a horse ranch.
So you understand the animal aspect of the
Mm-hmm.
animal connection that we can get, which could be very soothing for children
Yeah.
like your daughter as well, or any child for that matter, or any adult. But there's so many different ways that we can explore, and would you agree that if you try one that doesn't work, just keep searching, like the cleansing, keep trying
Oh,
till you find something that's going to work for you.
for sure. Yeah. And yes, the animal thing. That's why we have animals. We've got 2 dogs. We've got 4 rabbits at this time. Sometimes we have more rabbits than that.
More than you can count.
Yes. Yes. But they're soft and they're fluffy.
And they're
And
quiet.
they're quiet. Well, the dogs aren't always quiet, but
Yeah, well,
the
no.
rabbits are quiet. And the kids, when they need it, like if they're upset about something, they'll go straight to the dog and just start petting the dog, and it works. It does. It helps to calm you down. And so that's another thing. And exercise. I started, I don't know, it's been at least 15 years. There were some ladies that were doing exercise in the gym at church for free. And so I started going to that. And then that has just morphed into now I'm one of the leaders, and I lead it once a week. And it's just fun. It's fun for the social aspect. And then we're also moving our bodies and getting the exercise we need, because that's also, I mean, that's another thing that helps uplift you and helps you just be better within yourself, right? It helps you feel better
Yeah.
all around. And sometimes when you're tired and when you're run down, when you're stressed, all you want to do is sit on the couch and just stare and do nothing. If you're overwhelmed, I've been there where I just sat on the couch and just stared because I was so overwhelmed or so stressed or so exhausted, because I'd been up all night with the baby nursing and whatever, and then I had stresses during the day. You know, everybody goes through days like that when you're so tired and so stressed. The last thing I want to do is get up and exercise. But when I do, I always feel better.
Well, we need those healthy endorphins that come out, right? Excuse me. And that's what exercise gives us. Any kind of body movement or any kind of activity,
Yes,
and then probably a good idea to reach out to a friend too,
exactly.
get that human connection when you're feeling like garbage and you're laying, with unmotivated, unfocused on everything. Just maybe picking up the phone and talking to one person for like 5 minutes could change your whole outlook.
Yes.
Just reach out.
Yes. And I'm blessed. I have a bunch of sisters. So yeah, I talk to my sisters on the phone, and then I have some friends. Most of the time I'll get together with them face to face because they live near me. My sisters are all far away, but my friends, sometimes I'll just go on walks, and we'll let the kids play at the playground, and we'll take laps around the playground, and we'll just talk and talk and talk our troubles away. And it's so therapeutic.
Yeah,
So therapeutic.
definitely. It's so, so important that you have that. And I'm so glad for you that you do have that. And, like family's great, but you need that kinship with sisterhood or, just friendship, which
Right?
helps in so many different aspects because they're not related, but they can understand you on a different level. Your sisters are your
Exactly.
sisters. They've been around forever with you and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but yeah, but you'd get probably different advice or different bits of information from both sets, right?
Definitely. Definitely.
And then it's up to you to choose what you listen to.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean those are some things that I just have really really helped with stress levels, because when you can bring your stress level down, your brain can think better, because when you're in fight or flight or freeze, like it's the fight, flight or freeze,
Yeah.
and when you're in overwhelm and you freeze, you can't get anything done. You can't help anybody. And so taking those stress levels down with just different things, and you may find one works for you and one doesn't, and that's great. And then there are some things that just help everybody. Exercise is one of those things that helps everybody, and just because it just releases those natural endorphins, makes you feel good. I've found supplements that have helped support my body, not only with stress, but digestion and other things that just have helped overall with my health. And because that lifts you too, because when you don't feel good, it's harder. Just life is harder when you don't feel good. And so when you can find nutrition and supplements that can help lift you physically, then you feel better and you can do better, So
it's like a friend of mine who is a retired nurse. She always talks about triaging the body, mind, and soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds like the three areas that we all need to focus on all the time to make sure they're all in balance.
Yes.
And then we will be in balance and able to deal with situations a lot easier, less stressful, maybe thinking a lot clearer through those things, right?
Yes. Because when you're under so much stress, your brain really doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work to take you through the steps that you should be taking. And instead, you've got this circle going on in your head and you're so stressed, you just can't cognitively process things like you can when you're not under stress. And we'll find ourselves in a stressful situation. We'll do or say something that later we regret, right? Because we wouldn't have said those things if we were able to think clearly.
There's an interesting thing that occurred to me many, many years ago. I was in the process of a divorce, finding a new home to live in. My grandmother, who I was looking after, had just died. So many different things that were going on. And I had this job that I absolutely detested, but I took it because I needed the income to help get away from where I was. And one of the people that I worked with was actually, it was bordering on sexual harassment.
Uh-huh.
So it affected me so greatly and added to these so much amounts of stress that I was already feeling. I actually, for about 20 minutes that day, lost my eyesight.
Wow.
I could not see a thing. Scared me half to death.
Yeah.
But this is what happens when stress rules.
Yes.
And we need to work on all the different areas of our life. For example, your health, your fitness, your nutrition, your mental health, all these different things that can help us to keep everything in check and in balance.
Right.
So, Erika, what 3 points would you leave to our listeners today who are possibly going through a scenario like you did with your daughter's vaccinations? What 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
I would find a source that you can learn information from, because when you're first going through it, you don't know what things mean. You don't know what is normal, what is not normal sometimes. And so finding a source of information where you can go and find answers to your questions, because you won't get the answers from your doctor. You won't. They won't give you the correct answers.
Do they even know the answers half the time? I wonder.
No, they don't. In fact, for quite a few years, talking with my doctor, and we would go in and he would say, "Oh, getting any vaccines today?" And I'm saying, "Not today." And every time he would ask, he was good-natured about it. But he would always ask, and I would just say, "Not today." And sometimes we would have discussions, and he once told me, "You know way more about vaccines than I ever have."
Oh, that doesn't give you a vote of confidence, does it?
Because they don't have the education. They get like a chapter in their book about childhood immunizations, and it's basically, this is the schedule. They're safe and effective. These are the major issues that could happen with them. That's it. That's it. That's all they get. And then they have the pharmaceutical companies just peddling, giving them incentives and payments. They get paid when children in their practices are getting vaccinated. So they don't have incentive to learn and to go away from it. They just don't. So yes, get informed, find someone with information. There are, and if you want to reach out to me, I can give you a link to some Google Drives that have tons of information. And I did not compile it. Someone else did, so I'm not going to take credit for compiling it. But it's a resource that I have gone to more recently because all the information, I'm not very good with organizing. So I've got all these links and I didn't organize them. So when I found this, I'm like, yay, it's organized. Perfect.
That's the little miracles, isn't it?
I can send you those links, even put you in contact with this person if you want me to. If you just want information so that you can learn, so that you can see, and because that is like the start, because you really need to learn the information so that you can recognize and I didn't even go into all of the different symptoms she had, but some of them I didn't recognize at first, and it wasn't until I read this piece of information that I'm like, oh, that is what that was. I didn't recognize some of the things because I didn't know. I didn't know that this caused this and this symptom is this, right? So sometimes it's not until later that you'll realize, wow, okay, this that she was going through right here, that was related to this. And I didn't put the 2 and 2 together, but now I can because I've read this scientific information right here.
Wow. That's incredible.
So that would be number 1. Connect yourself with a source, with information, so that you can find out for yourself, and just be able to recognize what you're seeing in front of you as what it is. Number 2, take care of yourself, because there are so many stressors. And my daughter didn't get full-blown autism. There are so many different levels, and some people are thrown into a place where it is just so much more difficult than I've ever had to deal with, because it's full-blown autism, nonverbal, like kids going from talking to no more talking, no more communication, no more eye-to-eye contact. I mean, there are so many different things, and they have to deal with that, and they have to deal with occupational therapy. They need to deal with therapy in a lot of different ways, and deal with doctors, and deal with this, and deal with that, and then deal with the schools, because the schools, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it becomes a career on its own, doesn't it?
It does, because you have to fight so hard to get your child help. Even when it's obvious they need help, you have to fight for it. And sometimes you have to say the right words. And if you don't say the right words, they don't give you the help. So, and that's really frustrating for any parent who's tried to get their child an IEP or a 504 because they need help, and they don't say the right words. And they're like, oh, we can't help you because you didn't say the right words.
And how is the parent supposed to know what those right words are?
Exactly.
You know, like, that's crazy.
So much stress. And that's where you go to other parents that are in the same boat to find out, right? And you can go. So if you know other parents that have IEPs, that have 504s, talk to them. Get all the info from them, and they'll tell you how frustrating it is. It is extremely frustrating. There's so much stress on that level. There's so much stress on the home front, because if your child's going to school, they're going to be overstimulated when they come home, and they're comfortable at home, and they will let it all out. That's what those tantrums were, that I didn't know, what was going on at first. Like, why is she having these temper tantrums? She was overstimulated.
Oh,
and because sensory, right? She had all these sensory issues. So being at school, was like, she was, the whole day she was just going crazy because of all these sensory things. And she would come home and she would let it all out.
But didn't know how to express it.
Didn't know.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Oh my.
So, you're going to be dealing with that at home, and you're going to be dealing with the medical community, and they can be frustrating too. Insurance and just all the talk, and sometimes you won't understand what they're saying because they're using words you don't know yet. And even once you learn the words, you'll be trying to advocate for your child and get the help that they need. And sometimes they just won't cooperate. Now, sometimes they will, and there are good doctors out there. There are. I haven't met very many of them, but I know there are.
Keep searching.
Yes, exactly. And then there are some, like what we had when my children were little, and he was just, okay, you can do whatever you want, like you choose. And that worked out for us, where he was like, you choose. Well, right now we have insurance that goes through a certain company, and they're not like that at all. So we are the black sheep coming in anytime we have to come in to the doctors, because we don't cooperate always.
So how many times would you be turned away from an insurance program or anything along that line because there's already a pre-existing condition?
Well, I think it depends on the insurance for that, but some doctors will turn you away if you're not vaccinating. In fact, a lot of doctors won't even let you in their practice if you're not vaccinating your child. And so that's discrimination right there. And they do it because of the incentives they get for having 100% children in their practice vaccinated. They get incentives for that. And they will turn away your children, and they will not give you medical care if you're not vaccinating. So you do need to find a doctor that will accept you if you're not vaccinating. And sometimes that's quite difficult.
I would imagine it would be.
Yeah.
Especially I would imagine it would be.
In a place like California, where many of the doctors that had more natural mindedness have moved out because they're not welcome here with all the legislation and the laws that are surrounding vaccines and things. Many of them have left California because if they stayed here and continued to practice letting people choose, for one thing, what they do, and also looking at information from a child's medical records and making decisions to delay or not to vaccinate and sign papers so the kid can go to school and get an exemption. These doctors, if they sign more than 5 of those in a year, they are looked at by the government, and they can lose their license here in California.
Well, there's just something wrong with that.
There's something very wrong with that. Doctors need to be able to make proper decisions without having to think about Big Brother looking over their shoulder. They need to, the kids are what matter.
You would think, yes, that should be the priority.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we were talking before we started recording that I knew of a young girl years ago when I worked in a school system that she had had her childhood shot. Well, I can't remember which one at this point, but something went wrong as well. And she was 15 years old with the mentality of a 4 or 5-year-old. Yeah. And she was in a classroom of kindergarten students because they were trying to socialize her. But at the time, she didn't have the skills to be able to deal with what was happening. She, when she would get upset, she'd strike out. So, this woman, I was 5'9" at the time. This girl was 5'6", 5'7", in kindergarten. And, if she started to swing her arms, you had to watch it. But the other thing that she did was bite.
Oh, no.
And I know, like, my office was just around the corner from the classroom, and a lot of times the teachers would come in and ask me for help, and we had to physically restrain her, not only to protect the students, but to protect her
Yeah.
as well. And there were times that you had to watch what you were doing because she was quick, agile, and she would try to bite us. And poor thing didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
So it's a real shame how that can happen. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's terrible. And I really feel bad. But you know what? You are, what's your term? The super mom? What is it called? Holistic super mom.
You know what? That actually came from, you know, people talk about the super mom that does everything.
Mm-hmm.
And my view is that every mom is a super mom.
Yeah.
And that we don't have to do everything to be the super mom. And so that's the mentality I come from when I'm using that word.
No, I get it.
Every mom is a super mom, and I just happen to do holistic things, and so I brought that in there.
I like it, and I think that's very appropriate for what you're dealing with. I mean, you've gone the nutrition route, you've gone the exercise route, you've gone the advocacy route. You're doing everything that you know, and that is everything that's feasibly possible to help your child and help advocate for other children that are experiencing the same things. Yeah, and the parents.
Yes, because there are so many things I didn't know. I just didn't know. And some things I would do differently if I knew what I knew now.
Yeah.
And that's partly why I want to help others, because I didn't know things. And you can't help what you don't know, you know?
No, exactly. And you didn't know this was going to happen to your daughter, so you can't plan. And why would you want to plan for something like that? It's just, you know, not the right thing. But do you know what, Erika? I think you have been such a blessing today. Oh, and I really, really want to thank you for sharing your story. I know it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. But I think, you know, people are going to hear this, and people are going to become aware, and people are going to start talking. And that's what this is all about. It's about motivating the world through conversation. Yeah. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
So thank you, my dear, for being such a fantastic guest. And I would like to have you back later on to do this again, because I think there's more that we could touch on, more that we could advocate about. And are you okay with that?
Yes, I would be happy to come back. You are great to talk to, very easy to talk to.
Oh, thank you. I try. But listeners, I really want you to connect with Erika, and we will be having all of her social media links and her email address. I think you had said we are able to contact you. So we'll be sharing all of Erika's information. Really get in touch with her. Have a conversation with this lady. You may be able to help one other person yourself. You may not have this affecting your family, but you may know of someone who is having this right now, and they need help. So listeners and Erika, thank you for joining us today on Powering Through Life. We'll see you again next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Powering Through Life, where we explore life's challenges and learn valuable insights from my guests about how they have powered through their lives to survive and thrive. We can learn incredible lessons by sharing and motivating the world through conversation. You can access all of the Powering Through Life episodes on my website, teresasims.com, YouTube, Facebook, and Spreaker. So join us again next time for another inspiring conversation.